politics, commentary, entertainment, sports, news, and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
The reset worked. It was an effort to try to obtain Russian cooperation on some key objectives while Medvedev was president, and of course Putin still, pulled the strings, but he gave Medvedev a certain amount of independence to negotiate, number one, a new arms control treaty, which was absolutely necessary. We brought Russia around to understanding why we thought there needed to be international sanctions against Iran.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Hillary Clinton saying that the reset worked. Remember when she gave the reset button to the foreign minister of Russia back in March of 2009? We want to reset the relationship. And now she claims it worked. It seems like it worked to me. Everything's cool with Russia, right? Oh, boy. Time for the Malzberg panel. Criminal defense attorney Janet Johnson and senior partner and owner of the law offices of Adam M. Thompson. That would be Adam M. Thompson. Hey, guys. So let me ask you first, Janet. What do you make of Hillary saying that the reset worked?
Yeah, it reminds me of Bush saying he looked in Putin's eyes and saw his soul, right? Weren't they like having a bromance too? I mean, I think everybody hoped that Putin wouldn't be as evil as it turns out he was. And Hillary in 2012 said, after Putin ascended to the presidency again, we're going to have to rethink this. So I think she was with the majority of the world at that point thinking Putin is taking a back seat. We can deal with Medvedev, and then Putin is now back in control again, and the president's alone trying to sanction him, and Europe is still kissing up to him.
Well, Adam, how is she going to, square this when a Republican presidential candidate says and plays that in a commercial that not only giving the reset button to the foreign minister, but then fast forward to yesterday in the midst of all this and say that the reset worked?
Well, she'll probably press another reset button. That's what politicians do. One reset after another. I mean, listen, just take the initial statement. If everyone honestly believed Putin was pulling the strings behind the curtain, then you really were dealing with Putin the whole time, and you should have always had policy in place that addressed dealing with Putin the entire time. Now we're left with the situation that we presently have. Putin's in control as he always was, and he's slowly taking control over neighboring and bordering countries. And this is going to get scary in a very quick and fast way.
All right, let's move to Israel, where the Israeli cabinet has unanimously rejected the ceasefire put forth by John Kerry, which called for 7 days of humanitarian cessation of hostilities. Now, I think what's very interesting here, Adam, is that not only did the conservatives, the hawks in the cabinet say no way, they all said no way. I think this is very telling. They're not going to reward Hamas for what Hamas has done.
I'm glad. I'm so sick of all the rhetoric out there that's trying to put blame on Israel. They're a country defending themselves. We would do no less. Bombs are pouring in daily into this country, and they're just doing what any nation would do, protect its people. Hamas is using people in the Gaza Strip as shields for their operations. Who doesn't know this? Who isn't figuring this out? And if you're not, it's because your head's in the sand and you just want to ignore reality. That's the bottom line. So no ceasefire, just gives Hamas time to prepare, period.
So I agree with that, and I think, having elections when they did and getting Hamas in control, I mean, it's like having the KKK run our government. Who's going to respect us? The problem for Israel, though, is it is a PR nightmare, and the world is siding with the Palestinians. So they do have to do something to get back some of the, visuals. And, I think what they said is right. Netanyahu is right. There are sort of telegenic appeal for what's happening in the Gaza Strip, and the Palestinians are using it smartly to their advantage. Israel does have to change that narrative because they are dealing with people who don't want them to exist. And
but again, how do you change that narrative when the media is going to cover it the way they do? We all know what's going on there. Hamas is a terrorist organization that basically is running an area in a country. So you have to put a stop and an end to them. How do you do that without getting bad PR because where you need to attack them is where they're hiding amongst the population and they're covered in plain sight. So it's going to be bad PR.
Right. Why are their children playing on a beach in the middle of a war? They're not playing on the beach. I mean, that whole narrative, yes, I agree with that. But they are, reaching out. They're telling their enemy when they're going to bomb them. Nobody does that. But that has to be reported. I mean, we're talking about it, so that is a start. But you're right. They do have to get some momentum behind them and some sympathy. If the world understood that they're negotiating with people who wanted to wipe them off the face of the earth, that's not a negotiation. That's a non-starter. People don't seem to be hearing that narrative. They're hearing Palestinians are being, treated brutally. That has to be fixed in the media.
Well, yeah, the problem is that'll never change. Certainly internationally, that'll never change. And even here in America. I mean, if you watch the coverage, I watched last night and I tweeted out immediately when the Israeli ambassador just schooled. He took Erin Burnett to school and said, when you talk about any deaths in Gaza, you need to always say that specifically they were talking about the UN shelter, that in two UN-run schools, they found rockets. This, not Israelis saying it, these are established facts. And then the UN found the rockets and gave them back to Hamas. And he said, if you don't say that on every single news report that you're reporting on about the Gaza and about the conflict, then you're doing a disservice and you're slanting the coverage and you're not treating your viewers with the proper respect. She was speechless.
Right. Well, but Hamas is their government. So it's like saying, why won't you negotiate with Al-Qaeda? Well, because Al-Qaeda attacked us. You wouldn't negotiate with people who attacked you either. The IRA, before they were, reformed, before they became the new IRA, who's going to negotiate with people who are blowing up royal people? I mean, it's an unreasonable position to start with, but the world has bought it. And a ceasefire would at least maybe give Israel a chance to say, all right, now we're going to get, some aid to these children. The children, it's not their fault that they live with terrorists.
Yeah, but the problem is that
a ceasefire is not going to accomplish anything, Steve. We all know this. The bottom line is this. Janet touched on it. We would never negotiate with a terrorist group that we're at war with. This has been life in Israel. They're dealing with a terrorist organization as one goal: the obliteration of Israel and the Jewish state.
Adam, stay where you are, and Janet, stay where you are. And I'd like to think you're right, Adam. But with this administration, I could see Al-Qaeda at the table. I see Iran at the table, so I don't see much of a difference. Stay where you are. We're coming back with part 2. But your Newsmax Now updates next.